segue into talking about acceleration which is other than in a straight line. Here's a picture from the book. And this is like the start of section 1. And this is like a cheetah chasing a rabbit. And I tried to get one which didn't look, I mean, that cheetah looks nasty. I tried to get one where the cheetah looked gentle, but I think when they're like chasing rabbits, they kind of got that predator thing going on. So, and here's what the thing is. Cheetahs are capable of remarkable accelerations, but they're mostly about going in a straight line. When they chase rabbits, the rabbits escape most of the time. The rabbits escape 5 times out of 6, actually. And the reason is rabbits are not nearly as good at accelerating in a straight line. They're not nearly as good at, their top speed isn't as high. But check it out. The rabbit has wisely chosen to like turn a corner right around then. Okay, and so the rabbit is like, they zigzag. And that's their particular area of expertise. If they can't necessarily get up to speed so fast, but they can change the direction really, really quickly. And that's a really popular evasive strategy for prey. Okay, prey animals is just to not change your speed, change your direction, and then you don't care how fast the cheetah is moving if it's not coming towards you. So it's kind of a really, it's a good thing. And you can tell, look, the cheetah is working hard to change direction because look at how much it's tipped. And it's hard. But the rabbit is already changed direction. So we want to talk about this kind of acceleration, changing direction acceleration. And I'm going to start with a demonstration. And first off, we'll talk about how would you measure acceleration. Now this is a picture of someone who was in a rocket sled. And this is the biggest acceleration anybody has ever withstood in a controlled experiment. Rocket sled. And this one he was accelerating at 20 Gs. And he actually did one test where he accelerated at 40 Gs. And 46. When you accelerate at 46 Gs, 50 Gs is likely to cause like your brain hemorrhage and like death. When you start to get up in the high 40s, it damages your vision. It damaged his eyes and they didn't completely recover. Interestingly, people can have a bigger acceleration forward than they can, which they call like eyes in, than they can eyes out. If you're accelerating this way, your eyeballs can like pop out. Anyway, it's kind of gruesome. But anyway, this was like a 20 G thing. You see how like his cheeks are pushed back? That's not because of the wind. That's just because he's being pushed forward. And it's one thing we'll talk about when we talk about forces is objects at rest tend to remain at rest, you know. And so he's being pushed forward, but his body is kind of like not wanting to go forward. It's kind of getting pushed back a little bit. And so you can see that. We can do this on something like this on a smaller scale with this tank. This tank's got fluid in it. And if I accelerate it, the fluid is going to move. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to accelerate it that way, and I want you to watch how the liquid moves. So hold it steady, and I'm going to push it that way. Okay, so the acceleration's in that direction. Watch the fluids. Okay, ready? And, okay, what did you see? How did it tip? Like that? Okay, think about it. The water's on the bottom, it's heavier. The fluid's on the top is lighter, it's kerosene, and it tipped like that. So the water kind of like sloshes to the back. The kerosene, interestingly, gets pushed to the front, but it tips like that. Think about this. The slope, if you tip the slope's like pointing that way. That's the direction of the acceleration. If I take it and accelerate it that way, which way is it going to tip? It's going to tip the other way. Here we go. Ready? And, oh yeah. Now, I can also make it stop quickly. Okay? And stopping is an acceleration as sure as starting is. And so if I start it, I'm going to start it slow and stop it quickly. Okay? So I'm going to move it that way. And when I get to the end of the classroom, I'm going to stop it. When I do that, what's the direction of the acceleration? This way. And so it should tip, whoop, like that. Let's see if that in fact happens. Here we go. So kind of like slow start, rapid stop. And it does. It goes up on that side over there. So think about it. The angle of the slope always points in the direction of the acceleration. But this thing's mounted on a bearing. Rather than just rolling it back and forth in front of the class, how about if I was to spin it? Oh, yeah. And that's what this is about. This is really about the spin. Okay, now think about this. As this thing goes, it makes this kind of nice parabolic shape. That tells me there's an acceleration. Okay? There's an acceleration. And if you're on the outside of the tank, which way does the acceleration point? towards the center, towards the center. We just said the angle of the slope of the boundary between the two liquids points in the direction of the acceleration. If it's tipped this way, it's pointing that way into the center of the tank. This side, tipped this way, it's pointing that way into the center of the tank. The acceleration isn't directed outward. If it was directed outward, it'd curve like this. It's going inward because the tank's curved like that. So acceleration is directed towards the center of the circle. It's directed towards the center of the circle. Now, I'm going to bring up one point, and something we'll come back to later. If you're in something which is spinning around, you feel pushed to the outside, right? We'll come back to that. But don't think about that. Just think about this. When something goes in a circle, the acceleration is directed towards the center. How do I know that? I just proved it right here. This is an accelerometer, and the accelerometer is showing me the acceleration is directed towards the center of the circle. You can also prove it with vectors. Take a look at that in the textbook. Ultimately, this is the thing that you come up with, that to go in a circle requires an acceleration, and the acceleration is directed towards the center of the circle. It's an acceleration because the velocity is changing. Velocity is two things. One is the magnitude, that's the speed, but the other is the direction. And when you're going in a circle at a constant speed, your speed isn't changing, but your direction is changing. And because of that, there's an acceleration, and the direction of the acceleration is towards the center of the circle. Okay? Now, if you give me like 20 minutes of your time and let me do some vector math with you, I can prove this, that the acceleration is actually to the square of the velocity divided by the radius. Or you can look at that in the textbook. Or you can just take my word for it. Let's do that right now, because I want to dig into some problems. This is the magnitude of the acceleration, v squared over r, the direction towards the center of the circle, if an object is going in a circle at a constant speed.